Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. I've got a real treat for you here, and when I say treat, I don't mean treat. Score on Rotten Tomatoes, 4%. Metacritic's general public score, 2%. The tagline for this one, the biggest cast ever assembled for the most outrageous comedy ever made. Movie 43. It is, I think it was in the cinema earlier this year. It is the new gross-out comedy with an all-star cast, and it really can't be emphasised enough just how all-star this cast is. And honestly, it's something like 13 directors making little bits and pieces, so there's an awful lot of blame to go around for this one. There's a lot of people to blame, one of which is Bob Odenkirk, who's actually got a great comedy writing pedigree from Saturday Night Live. He wrote some of the Tenacious D skits that were actually really funny 10 or so years ago. He's also a perfectly decent actor as Saul, the lawyer in the TV series Breaking Bad, but he's got to be responsible for a lot of what goes wrong here. People who've helped write this, there's lots of people involved, but two who should get more blame than the most by virtue of the fact they seem to have been involved in more of the writing than others. Two chaps, Rocky Russo and Jeremy Sosenko. Now, my idea for this film, and I'll go into the actual who's in it, etc., shortly, but watching this film, I had this fantastic idea, and I think it really should be implemented. Now, during Roman times, if there'd been a disaster where a particular Roman unit had been completely disgraced beyond all recall of being Roman, they'd implement something called decimation, which meant that the men in the unit would, 1 in 10 of them were going to die, and the 9 out of 10 would have to nominate the 1 in 10 to who are for the chop, and then basically beat them to death. I think they should have exactly that policy of decimation with this film, and I think that if anything it should be greater than 1 in 10, because all the professional people that were paid to be in this film, to do stuff in this film, the electricians, the writers, everyone, lessons need to be learned so that they do not do this again. Basically what's happened is they've made the world's most disgusting film, but what really leaves the bad taste in the mouth, what really revolts me, is just how lazy and disrespectful this film are. They think you're idiots. They're basically, well, we'll get all these people in, and then we'll make it gross out. And then who cares about the audience? I don't give a stuff about them. Just give us your money and shut up. Just hand over the cash, get in that cinema. I don't care about you. Acting-wise, we've got an inexplicable and unbelievable cast. We've got Dennis Quaid, we've got Greg Kinnear, we've got Hugh Jackman, Kate Winslet, Liv Schreiber, Naomi Watts, Emma Stone, Richard Gere, Uma Thurman, Hal Berry, and Stephen Merchant. Stephen Merchant, what the heck is he doing? What are any of them doing here? So, what we have is a very, very loose setup for a film. It's feebly loose to just get disgusting things happening. So we've got 3 kids, 2 older ones and the younger brother who's a bit of a nerd. They're trawling the internet for disgusting videos on YouTube kind of thing, and internet porn sites. So basically this draws us into the different skits that they're essentially supposed to be watching. So we start off with Hugh Jackman going on a date, and he's unbelievably successful. This wonderful guy, he's a lovely, charming bloke, very handsome, of course, because it's Hugh Jackman. He goes on a date with Kate Winslet, a blind first date, and both of them are acting their comedic hearts out. Bless them. They're trying so hard with the worst script ever. It's clawingly awful. And the big joke is, they go on the first date, he's lovely, but he's got testicles on his chin, and he's making no mention of it. So he'll mention, kids are a bit cruel growing up. You mean about the balls on your chin? No, something else. It's one of the worst individual scenes I've ever seen, and I really like those 2 actors. They try their best, but it's just doomed. It's absolutely doomed. It's the band playing on the Titanic going down. It's absolutely awful. We then have a scene where this man who's very much in love with his girlfriend, he's going to propose because they've been together for over a year, but before he gets a chance to, she says she wants him to defecate on her. So then of course he goes to a barbecue and he's discussing the best foods to eat with his friend, who, upsettingly for me, is played by the same guy that played the wonderful character Leon in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Really, really upsetting that he's here, and he's doing his Leon shtick, really, in that they're discussing the foods to eat. So he ends up taking what they describe as the Viagra of defecation, and as a consequence, he really, really needs to go number twosies, and, good lord, it all goes wrong, and he ends up going for a poo on a car. Imagine that. Or actually, better don't. Just don't. Just don't. And it's actually probably less funny than I described it. It really is that bad. The film's cast is unbelievable, and then you wonder how on earth they got to ring all these people into appearing in this nightmare of a film. I mean, one look at the script must have sent them running, but apparently it didn't. We then get this running joke of an attempt at satire, which is a naked woman advertising something called the iBabe, which is an MP3 player with it, but it's sort of a naked woman, but not. It's a new product. Oh, good lord, that's incredibly funny. We then get a superhero spoof where Uma Thurman tells us all about Superman's semen. They then take a swing at 1960s Batman, because Christopher Nolan's Batman was far too smart for them. So they go, what was 1960s Batman? That's easy to make fun of. So they take this pathetic swipe at that. We get Batman hiding under a table describing Supergirl's vagina. It's pathetic. I mean, it really is absolutely pathetic. The film most reminds me probably of the awful Rob Schneider film. It was his follow-up to... I actually quite liked the first Deuce Bigelow. I remember laughing at it. But he came up with European Gigolo, and that featured a woman with genitals on her face. And that was awful. That was nasty. And in all fairness, this is nastier. This is plumbing the depths of bad taste without ever raising anything like a laugh. It's unbelievable. The film sets out to gross the audience out, and it does, but the thing I was most grossed out by in this film is just how morally bankrupt this whole thing is. I hate this film, and this is everything that's wrong with cynical filmmaking. And the film just doesn't make you laugh. It just sort of assumes that you would at some point. Sort of like Jack and Jill. It's screw you, audience. I don't care. Just give us your money. I wouldn't recommend this film to the most puerile and infantile of teenager. And I think everyone that's involved with this film needs to really take a long, hard look at themselves and think, well, what possibly motivated them to do this? Surely these stars, these huge stars like Richard Gere, they don't need the money. And there's no way that looking on the script you could think it would be anything other than awful. And please don't listen to this and think, Chris, he doesn't get humour. I bet it's a bit of fun. I bet it's a bit of naughty fun. I like Ted. What does Chris know? I'm sure you'll watch movie 43 and you'll say, okay, all right. It really is that awful, and not in a good way. There's nothing redeemable about this at all. There's no guilty laugh at all. There's just guilty awfulness. It stinks. The film reeks, and only people that have seen this can appreciate how bad it is. Stuff with Halle Berry with her boobs out, making guacamole. Really? Gerard Butler as a leprechaun saying really horrible things, pretty much as horrible a thing as you could possibly imagine. Is that funny? No, it's not funny. People getting really excited about a girl having her first period. She doesn't understand what's going on, so it's a teenage girl or young teenage girl making out with a boy, and she gets her period, and she freaks out. They all freak out. I don't know what to say. It's infantile beyond belief. Beyond belief. If you're stupid enough to give them money after listening to this review, you deserve everything you get. This film is terrible. Absolutely. I can't think of a film that's this bad that I've reviewed. I've reviewed some bad films, some films I thought were really, really, really poor, but this trumps them all. This is awful without any redeeming features. I mean, you could watch something like Sweeney and get a bit of a chuckle out of it, these grown men being a bit pathetic, but you couldn't do that here. And this is a comedy, for God's sake. So there we are, movie 43. Do not, under any circumstances, give them your money. Do not do it. It's money votes, and they're just going to make more of them. Kind regards, Christopher Thomas.